What if the person you trusted the most vanished when you needed them the most? That's the sting of silence betrayal. It's not marked by shouting, cheating, or public scandal. Instead, it arrives quietly and without warning. It's when someone you poured your heart into, someone you trusted with your loyalty, time, and presence, chooses convenience over real commitment. When the skies were blue, they cheered. But when the storms hit, they disappeared. They were all in when it was easy, when blessings were abundant, and everything flowed smoothly. Their applause was the loudest. Then life got heavy. The clouds rolled in, the fire got hot, and suddenly they were gone. No explanation, no warning, just a void where their promise used to be. That not just walking away but betraying you is far deeper than faded loyalty. See, loyalty doesn't shine in joy. It's tested in chaos, suffering, and silence. It's not about who shows up when it's comfortable. It's who stays when it's inconvenient. If someone left when you needed them the most, when your soul was broken and your spirit on life support, they didn't just betray your trust. They betrayed your worth. Because real love is a choice, not a circumstance. And if someone walked away when things got tough, they never loved you deeply in the first place. Let me speak truth into your spirit. People love to make promises. They'll say they care. They'll say they'll stay. But the fire, your real test, exposes the fakes. When life hurts, when you bleed, true loyalty doesn't run away. Those who leave didn't just walk out on you, they walked out on what they said they stood for. If someone left when you needed them, most apologizing for your need isn't weakness. Relationships are exactly about standing together, vowing to walk both valleys and mountains. It's covenant, not convenience. You aren't asking for too much by expecting someone to stay when the path turns rocky. You're simply asking for what God designed friendship to be. And here's the powerful part. If someone chose the easy escape while you stayed to fight the pain, that's not someone worth keeping close. You don't need to heal around someone who hurts you more. It may hurt to see them go, but holding on could hurt you deeper. Pain from silent betrayal cuts just as sharply as a blade. It's just that the wound is invisible. It's the betrayal that comes in whispers, not swords. And often, this is the hardest truth. The betrayal wasn't even someone physically gone. They stayed in the house. They stayed in your bed. But their hearts left long ago. Imagine the ache living with someone who shares space, but not spirit, where you feel more alone with them than you ever did without them. That is desertion with a smile. A hollow routine without substance. This kind of emptiness is haunting, seeing a familiar face, but feeling gone from a person's heart. So how do we respond? We start with truth. We face the actual reality of the relationship. Not how it should have been, but how it truly is. And then we give ourselves permission to say goodbye. Not in anger, but in wisdom. Not out of hurt, but out of self-respect. Release isn't betrayal, it's clarity. It's recognizing your voice matters. Your value matters. Ghana wanted a partner through every season, not someone who disappeared. Get stronger, not bitter. Believe again, not in quiet betrayal, but in quiet devotion. If someone chose to quit when it got uncomfortable, they didn't love you enough to stay. And that's not your burden to carry. Letting go opens space for someone whose loyalty shines in storms, not just sunshine. And that's exactly the person you deserve. Real love shows up. It stays present. It's not about the comfort, it's about the covenant. Betrayal in silence cuts deeply, but standing strong in your response shines brighter. You deserve relationships that stay through the fire. You deserve loyalty that doesn't vanish. Don't apologize for needing that. Sometimes betrayal isn't loud. It's not dramatic or obvious. It doesn't slam the door, it just slowly fades. They stop caring. They stop praying with you. They stop seeing your tears, stop hearing your cries. Their body is still present, but their soul has long left the room. They become a ghost, with a face, a haunting presence in your life. And, friend, that is betrayal too. When someone chooses not to show up for you emotionally, spiritually, or mentally, even though they still share your space, they break a sacred trust. Because, let's be honest, showing up halfway is worse than not showing up at all. It leaves you more confused than comforted, more isolated than if they had simply left. You're left clinging to a shell of someone who's already gone. You've got to guard your soul from people who treat commitment like it's seasonal. Those who are only present when skies are clear but vanish the moment clouds roll in. Because storms, they're coming. That's life. And if someone isn't willing to weather the storm with you, they don't deserve to dance in your breakthrough. Don't let their absence during your hardest days earn them a seat at your table during your victories. You owe nothing to people who couldn't handle your brokenness. If they couldn't love you in the valley, they don't deserve you on the mountaintop. And yes, forgiveness is important. It's between you and God. Release the bitterness. Let go of the grudge. But don't forget what the storm revealed. Don't erase the lesson that pain came to teach. Remember who vanished when the fire got hot. Remember who stood still while you struggled to breathe. Some people come into your life not to remain, but to reveal. They are a test, a mirror, a moment. And when that test ends, you don't retake it. You learn, you grow, and you thank God for the insight. Because loyalty isn't revealed in comfort, it's proven in chaos. It's not about who laughs with you in celebration, but who stays with you through devastation. And when someone chooses convenience over commitment, when they step away when they were meant to step in, that is not someone you allow back into the sacred places of your life. That's a betrayal you never excuse, and it's one you never forget. There is something holy, something raw and beautiful about vulnerability. When you open up to someone, you are handing them the real version of yourself. Not the polished image, not the version you present to the world, but the real you, the one with scars, the one with stories, the one with tears that still sting, and memories that still ache. That kind of openness is sacred. It's trust in its purest form. And when someone takes that trust and turns it into a weapon, when they use your vulnerability against you, that is one of the most brutal forms of betrayal a heart can endure. Because betrayal rarely comes from enemies. It comes from those we let closest, those we shared secrets with at midnight, the ones we whispered our dreams to in the dark, the ones we believed would guard our hearts, not pierce them. And when they do, it changes something in you. But here's the truth. Even in that pain, even in that heartbreak, there is a lesson. There is clarity. There is healing. So after you've opened your heart, after you've survived the betrayal that came wrapped in silence, what comes next can be even harder to process, the betrayal that comes from the deepest kind of trust. These were the ones who held you while you cried. The ones who looked you in the eyes and whispered, "You're safe with me." The ones you thought would protect your secrets the way they protected your smile. And then one day, something shifted. Their mood changed. Their loyalty wavered. And they took the very pain you shared in confidence and used it as a weapon to wound you deeper. That's not just hurtful. That's not just careless. It is a violation of your soul. Let me be clear, if anyone has ever taken your deepest wound and turned it into gossip, if they've used your trauma as ammunition in an argument, if they've thrown your most vulnerable truth back in your face to shame you or silence you, that was not a misunderstanding. That was not just poor judgment. That was a betrayal of your humanity. It was a betrayal of the sacred trust you gave them. And no amount of "I didn't mean it," or "I was just upset," or "you're being too sensitive" can erase the choice they made to use your pain against you. Because some people don't understand the weight you carried just to speak those words. They don't see the strength it took to open up that locked chapter of your life. They don't realize it took courage, not weakness, to hand someone a piece of your past. And when they mishandle it, when they toss it around like it's casual, or weaponize it to control you, they're not just being cruel. They're revealing something broken in them, something far more fractured than what you ever shared. You see, when you're vulnerable with someone, you're not asking them to fix you. You're not asking them to have all the answers. You're simply asking them to be gentle. You're saying, "Here's the tender part of me. Please don't crush it." And when they respond with judgment, manipulation, or exposure that says more about their brokenness than your bravery, because, sadly, some people don't study your wounds to heal them. They study your wounds to know where to stab. They smile to your face and take mental notes of your pain, not to support you, but to use it later when it benefits them. That's real. That's raw. And that's why some of the most devastating heartbreak doesn't come from enemies. It comes from the ones we trusted most. You have every right to protect yourself from that kind of pain ever again. Forgiveness. Yes, it's important. Bitterness. No, don't carry that weight. But here's what you don't owe. You don't owe a second chance to someone who used your honesty as a blade. Because real love does not humiliate. True trust does not punish. And authentic loyalty does not broadcast your private pain into public places. That kind of betrayal. It cuts deeper than we often admit. It doesn't just bruise the heart. It shakes the very foundation of what love is supposed to be. So take a moment and ask yourself, who has access to my soul? Who have you given front row seats to your healing journey? Not everyone deserves that place. Not everyone can be trusted with your truth. And just because someone says "I'm sorry" doesn't mean they're safe. Apologies without changed behavior are just manipulation with better timing. Be wise. Be discerning. You're allowed to guard the sacred parts of your story. Because you, your heart, your healing, they matter. By now, you've learned the hard truth. Some betrayals require boundaries, not reunions. They don't need second chances. They need closed doors. You've grown. You've endured. You've cried in silence more times than anyone knows. And you've explained yourself far too often to people who were never truly listening, only collecting information, never offering connection. So hear me clearly, you don't owe re-entry to anyone who twisted your whispered truths into weapons. That's not love. That's not friendship. That's a betrayal that doesn't need to be revisited, it needs to be remembered. Because some echoes speak louder than the words themselves. You're not bitter. You're not hardened. You've just become wiser. You've realized that trust isn't a toy, and hearts aren't meant to be handled carelessly. You've learned that when someone mishandles your soul after you handed it to them with trembling hands, that is not something you forget. And honestly, that's not something you're obligated to forgive. Because not all betrayal is explosive. Not all of it shouts. Some betrayal comes in complete silence. It arrives slowly, softly, like a fog creeping into a once clear sky. One day you wake up and realize the person you love is still there, still in the house, still in the bed, still sharing the space. But their presence is gone. The warmth has vanished. The connection has dimmed. The heartbeat of the relationship has faded into stillness. And that kind of absence. It can be louder than any argument, any slammed door, any shouted goodbye. Because when someone stops showing up emotionally, when they turn off the part of themselves that once connected to your joy, your pain, your dreams, that too is betrayal. Just because they haven't left the room doesn't mean they're still with you. Because love isn't just proximity. It's not just being in the same room. Love is presence. It's eye contact, engagement, thoughtfulness. It's caring when no one's watching. It's noticing when something's off. It's reaching not just for your hand, but for your soul. And when someone stops asking how you're really doing, when they stop listening with their eyes, when they stop reaching because they want to and only touch you out of routine. That's not love anymore. That's not connection. That's emotional abandonment in disguise. Some of the loneliest people in the world. They're not sleeping alone. They're lying in beds next to people who have already left them in spirit, even if their body stayed. And that's the kind of ache that lingers. Because you remember. You remember when they noticed. When they paused mid-sentence just to check on your silence. When they looked up from their phone and into your soul. When holding your hand felt like a sacred act, not just a habit. But now they scroll. They nod. They grunt. They pass by you like furniture in a room they no longer admire. And that emptiness. It's not in your imagination. It's real. It's heavy. It's painful. Because emotional betrayal leaves no visible scars, but it tears something sacred underneath. So, what do you do when the person beside you feels further away than a stranger? What does healing look like when the hurt lives inside your own home? And perhaps the hardest part of all is what begins to happen inside you. You start to question yourself. You lie awake at night, wondering, what did I do wrong? Why don't they talk to me anymore? Why does it feel like I've become invisible in my own relationship? The silence doesn't just surround you. It starts to seep into your spirit. But hear me and hear me clearly. You are not crazy. You are not dramatic. You are not too much. You are human. And emotional connection isn't some extravagant desire. It's the lifeblood of real love. It's not optional. It's essential. When someone chooses to shut you out, when they build walls instead of bridges, when your presence becomes background noise instead of something sacred, that is more than detachment, it's betrayal. A betrayal of intimacy at its very core. Because presence without participation, that's abandonment in disguise. And here's the truth. You cannot build a meaningful future with someone who is emotionally absent in your present. Relationships aren't built solely on what you can see. They are constructed in the unseen, in whispered prayers, quiet glances, soft touch, intentional listening, emotional effort. When those things fade, what's left isn't love, it's performance. A routine dressed up as a relationship. A hollow rhythm where intimacy used to live. And I need you to understand this deeply. Emotional abandonment is not less painful than physical departure. In fact, in many ways it can hurt more, because at least when someone physically leaves, the break is clear. The goodbye is definitive. But when they stay without staying, when they're in the house but not in your heart, when they're around but no longer with you, that creates a special kind of ache. A confusion that slowly wears down your soul. You start to shrink. You go quiet, not because you're at peace, but because you're exhausted. You stop asking for what you need, not because you don't feel it, but because you've learned it will be met with indifference. And so little by little, you begin to disappear inside yourself. Not to escape, but to survive. You trade your voice for silence, your needs for their comfort, your identity for peace that isn't even real. But let me say this with love and fire. Love that costs you your voice is not love. Love that asks you to be quiet so someone else can feel comfortable is not love. When someone betrays your emotional needs, when they show up halfway, when they refuse to lean in when you're breaking, that is not a minor issue. That's a deep fracture, a tear in the fabric of trust. And no routine, no shared history, no amount of time can compensate for the pain caused by that level of detachment. You deserve more. You deserve presence that sees you, love that hears your heart before you even speak. You deserve someone who doesn't just sit beside you, but sits with you. Heart to heart, soul to soul. Someone who looks into your eyes, really sees you and says, I'm here. I still care. I still choose you. Because that's what commitment sounds like. That's what covenant feels like. So after you've reclaimed your voice, after you've realized that love isn't silence, and connection isn't just proximity, what comes next is just as crucial: refusing to settle. Don't settle for bodies without souls. Don't settle for someone saying, I'm here, when their heart checked out months ago. And most importantly, don't you dare blame yourself for someone else's refusal to engage. Love takes work. Real love leans in, even when it's hard. It reaches across silence. It listens when it's uncomfortable. It closes the emotional distance, not ignores it. So when someone chooses to stay disengaged, when they let the silence grow louder, when they show up physically but keep leaving you emotionally starving, that is not commitment. That is betrayal. And no apology, no pretty words, no, I was going through something can erase the damage that kind of emotional neglect causes. Some betrayals, no matter how soft-spoken or subtle, aren't meant for reconciliation. We've been told that forgiveness always means giving someone a second chance, that it means opening the door again, rebuilding what was lost, trusting again. But there are betrayals, deep ones, where forgiveness doesn't call for reunion. It calls for release. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is to forgive someone and walk away. Even if they never understand the weight of what they did. Even if they never apologize the way you deserved. Even if they never change. I know that's hard to hear, especially if you're someone who believes in grace, who wants to believe in redemption, who holds out hope for reconciliation. But listen closely. Not every relationship is meant to be restored. Not every person who hurt you deserves a seat at your table again. Some wounds cut so deeply, so personally, that to offer a second chance isn't healing, it's reopening the wound. Because forgiveness is not permission to repeat. It's not about pretending it didn't happen. It's not about diminishing the pain. Forgiveness is about freeing yourself from bitterness, anger, and regret. But that doesn't mean the person who hurt you gets a ticket back into your life. You can forgive from a distance. You can release the weight without reopening the door. You can heal without handing them the keys to your peace again. Sometimes protecting your peace means building boundaries so strong that even regret can't climb over them. Because forgiveness is not a green light for re-entry. It's a declaration that says, I'm moving forward. I'm making room for people who will love me the right way. If someone betrayed you in a way that shattered your trust, if their actions fractured your spirit, broke your peace, dimmed your light, you do not owe them another shot. You don't owe them another chance to prove what they failed to protect the first time. The truth is, some people will never change. They will never see the damage they caused. They will never understand the weight of their words, the ripple of their silence, or the devastation they left behind. And you can't spend your life waiting for someone to finally realize your worth. That is not your job. That is not your burden to carry. You were not created to sit in emotional limbo, hoping someone who broke you will come around and fix what they refuse to acknowledge. After learning to walk away from betrayal and choose peace over pain, there's one more truth you need to hold tight. It's your responsibility to recognize your worth and to protect it fiercely. Because when someone's betrayal steals something from you, your trust, your heart, your peace, or even your sense of self, you are not obligated to give them another chance to take more. You have every right to draw a clear line, to say, I forgive you, but I will not let you back in. That doesn't make you cold. That doesn't make you bitter. That makes you wise. It means you've come to understand that your future holds more value than any chapter soaked in pain. It means you now realize that healing is forward motion, not going back to something that once broke you. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself, and even for them, is to walk away and never look back. Because letting someone who betrayed you re-enter your life without accountability or boundaries, that isn't compassion. That's self-sabotage. And let's be honest, how many times do you need to be hurt before you accept that some people simply cannot love you the way you deserve? This is not about blaming them. This is not about bitterness. This is about you, your healing, your growth, your peace. You're not wrong for closing the door to someone who refuses to change. You're not cruel for deciding not to retell the same story over and over again just because they haven't learned their lesson. And don't let guilt confuse you. You're not holding a grudge. You're holding space for your healing. You've learned to guard your heart not out of fear, but out of wisdom. You've learned to value long-term peace over temporary comfort. You've discovered that true healing doesn't always mean returning to the one who caused the wound. Sometimes healing looks like closure, like silence, like a firm boundary that says, "This chapter is done." It's easy to confuse forgiveness with reconciliation, but they are not the same. Forgiveness is internal. It's about freeing yourself from the grip of what someone did to you. It's about letting go of resentment so you can breathe again. Reconciliation, on the other hand, is external, and it requires change. It requires accountability. It requires someone else to take responsibility. And not everyone is ready or willing to do that. And here's the truth. You cannot force someone to change. You cannot drag someone into self-awareness. You cannot make someone confront the very flaws they're still trying to deny. But what you can do, you can protect your heart. You can walk away from what no longer supports your healing. You can choose peace, even if it means choosing distance. So yes, forgive. Release the weight. But understand that forgiveness is not an invitation for someone to come back into your life. Sometimes forgiveness says, "I wish you well," from afar. Sometimes it whispers, "I release you, but I will not relive you." Sometimes healing looks like walking away quietly, with peace in your heart and strength in your soul. No fireworks, no final confrontation. Just a decision that says, "I choose me now." But before we move on, there's one final betrayal we need to talk about. A betrayal that rarely screams. It doesn't leave bruises or cause public scenes. It's quieter, subtler. It's the betrayal of your boundaries. This form of betrayal is often overlooked because it doesn't come wrapped in rage or dramatic exits. No, this one slips in slowly, like water seeping through cracks. And before you realize what's happening, someone has crossed lines you never thought you'd let them cross. They didn't yell, they didn't leave, but they kept pushing, bit by bit, ignoring the small no's, laughing off the discomfort in your eyes, brushing aside your need for space, for clarity, for respect. And here's the truth, that kind of betrayal can be just as damaging, if not more so, than anything else. Because boundaries are sacred. They are not walls to keep people out. They are not selfish. They are not unkind. Boundaries are the guardrails of your well-being. The quiet, powerful way you say, "This is what I need to stay whole." They protect your peace. They uphold your dignity. They preserve your identity. They make sure that your emotional, mental, and physical health isn't sacrificed to keep someone else comfortable. But when someone continues to violate those boundaries through manipulation, passive aggression, gaslighting, or plain disregard, they aren't just being selfish. They are betraying the trust you extended to them. They are trampling on the very framework you built to stay safe. And too many of you, maybe even you listening right now, have let those lines blur for far too long. You've let people into your space, your heart, your life in ways that made you shrink. You felt it when your stomach tightened, when your voice faltered, when your needs went unspoken for the sake of peace. You told yourself it wasn't a big deal, that maybe you were too sensitive, that if you just gave a little more, they'd finally see you. But each time your boundary was ignored, spoken or unspoken, a piece of your confidence chipped away. Your sense of self began to erode. And the wounds from these quiet violations, they often hurt deeper than the loud betrayals, because they make you question your right to ask for anything at all. Some of you have been so afraid of confrontation, so terrified of loss, that you've allowed yourself to be treated in ways you swore you never would. And I want to say this gently but firmly, when you allow someone to keep crossing your boundaries without consequence, you're teaching them that it's okay. You're teaching them that your voice is negotiable, that your needs are flexible, that your worth is something they get to decide. But that is not the truth. That is not who you are. You are not selfish for saying no. You are not unloving for needing space. You are not difficult for expecting respect. You are a person with value, a soul that deserves safety, a heart that deserves kindness. We're going to talk about what it means to reclaim your boundaries, not in anger, but in power. Not with fear, but with clarity. Because the moment you begin honoring your own limits is the moment others learn how to honor them too. Previously, we talked about how boundaries are not walls to keep people out, but bridges to protect your peace. But what happens when those boundaries are tested again and again? Now, I know some of you are thinking, but they didn't mean it. They didn't realize how much it hurt me. Let me lovingly speak truth to that thought. People know. They may not always act out of cruelty, but they know what they're doing when they repeatedly cross lines you've clearly drawn. They know you'll eventually give in, that you'll stay quiet, apologize first, sweep it under the rug. They know you're the one who bends so they never have to. And if you keep letting them, they'll keep taking. But hear this with every part of your heart. You do not owe anyone an apology for having boundaries. You do not owe them an explanation for protecting your peace, for needing space, for choosing yourself when no one else does. You don't have to keep saying yes to people who trample on your no. You don't have to keep pouring from your cup into people who never refill it. And you certainly don't have to keep the door open for those who've shown you time and again that they only enter to take, not to contribute. Here's the truth. You cannot love others well if you do not first love yourself enough to protect your emotional well-being. You cannot show up fully in your life, your purpose, your relationships, your dreams, if you are constantly being drained, disrespected, and diminished. You cannot live freely and joyfully while constantly shrinking yourself to avoid conflict, walking on eggshells to make others comfortable. Yes, some people in your life may love you, but loving you is not the same as respecting you. And when their love ignores your boundaries, when they continue to push demand-take without giving, you are left with a decision. You must choose: is their approval more important than your peace? Is their comfort more valuable than your sanity? Is their convenience worth the cost of your heart? You see, once you choose to honor yourself, you must also stand firm. Let's make this clear. Setting boundaries doesn't make you cold. It doesn't make you selfish. It doesn't make you rude or unkind. It makes you strong. It makes you wise. It makes you someone who values themselves enough to say, I will no longer allow anyone to take more than they are willing to give. It means you understand that your peace is sacred, that your time is not a free-for-all, that your heart is not a doormat for people to wipe their mess on. You are worth more than being treated like an afterthought. You are worth more than being someone's emotional punching bag. You are worth more than being their last-minute priority. And if someone continues to betray your boundaries, if they keep taking without regard, dismissing your needs to preserve their own comfort, then it is time to let them go. Because no one who truly loves you will make you feel like you are less than enough. No one who respects you will cross your boundaries without fearing the cost of that disrespect. So set your boundaries, protect your peace, and know this with every fiber of your being. You do not need to explain your worth to anyone. The only person who must recognize your value is you. Because once you start treating yourself like you matter, the right people will follow your lead. Let them go if they cannot respect you. Let them go if they only take. Let them go if their presence costs you your peace. You deserve more. And now you're ready to act like it.